Welcome to the Women Leaders Association podcast, where we believe we go further, faster, and have more fun when we go together. Be sure to tune in each week to hear an empowering message from the world's top women executives, trailblazers, entrepreneurs, and all-around fierce female leaders. I'm your host, Julianne Kirkland, and I will be taking you on a deep dive of each message to equip you with the principles, strategies, and tools you need to start crushing your goals, increasing your impact, creating work-life harmony, and did I mention have more fun? Because when you love what you do it better. The Women Leaders Association is the world's largest women executives association with over 30,000 women in executive and leadership positions who are committed to the development and advancement of women in the corporate arena. If you would like to get involved in a Women Leaders Association chapter, would enjoy daily podcasts, or you desire to become a part of the Women's Mastermind group near you, simply go to womenleaderspodcast.com. Now let's tune in for this incredible message. On today's episode, hear from Wendy Wallbridge. Wendy is a strong and vocal advocate for women and gender equity. Wendy Wallbridge is a pioneer in the coaching field and a rare talent for creating cultures of belonging. Her singular brand of coaching, defined by her Spiral Up model, empowers women to become archetypes of their own lives by following a radically different roadmap for success. Welcome, Wendy. Hey, welcome back to the Women Leaders Podcast. I'm your host, Julianne Kirkland, and I am so grateful that Wendy is with us today. Welcome, Wendy.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here with your joyous self.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, and it's a great atmosphere. You know, she was asking all about you guys, the listeners, the women who join into this podcast every single week to grow and to learn and to expand upon who they are and what they do. And Wendy is such a great fit for this podcast. She's going to speak life into you ladies today because that's what she's all about. She's about how we spiral up. And so, Wendy, I'm curious, like, how did you even get started in this role with Spiral Up? Like, go back to the beginning.
Oh, wow. That's a long time ago, but I can do that. I mean, I started in college. I had anxiety and I was really self-conscious, and I was studying psychology, and I realized that I was neurotic, and I thought I was the only one that was neurotic. And then I discovered that everybody is. And it made me just really want to understand how to not suffer. And I was very lucky that I found my purpose really young, like in my 20s. I became a coach kind of at the beginning of the whole coaching movement. And I said, I'm going to be this. I want to do this. And, it was really me wanting to get paid for what I was going to do anyway, because I love transformation and everything about it. So I've just been doing that ever since.
Yeah, that's so cool. And what led you into writing Spiral Up?
Yeah, the real kind of guru to me was that when I was 24, I was on a fast track. I was working with these two medical doctors, and we created this training company, and we were coaching, and it was very exciting. I lived in a beautiful home overlooking the Alcatraz, and staying up really late, partying. It was the 80s, and suddenly I woke up one morning and I couldn't move. And I was quickly diagnosed with a life-threatening blood disease called lupus, which they say you never get rid of, and that you'll be on the medication for the rest of your life. And it was a big wake-up call and scary. And I had it for 14 years. It resulted in a kidney transplant. And I'm free of it now, which is a miracle. And I had an amazing, perfect match from a donor kidney transplant, which changed my life 30 years ago. I will say that throughout that process of very much in and out of hospitals, all kinds of blood transfusions, different kinds of things, chemo, the hardest thing was really the in-between here. Like what
Absolutely.
I thought of myself, because I could no longer be Miss Type A personality. I had to find another part of myself other than the taskmaster that told me, hey, you're only good enough for what you produce. At the end of the day, it's never enough. What's the next thing? Boom, boom, boom. I couldn't do that. So I had to kind of find a softer part of myself that was also powerful. And that led me to this whole book, which is the integration of the masculine and feminine energy. And it's the tools for integrating.
Oh, I love that. I know that there's so many women listening right now and are resonating with that, where they have kind of formed their identity around their achievements. And especially in today's society where it's just constantly in our face with social media and all of the comparison that's out there, it's very easy to get sucked into that of, what I do is who I am. And that's not true at all.
Isn't that
It's a part, it's a reflection, but it is not who you are. And I know I have conversations with entrepreneurs all the time, and the lingo in the entrepreneur field, right, is when you're helping people to grow their business and to charge appropriate prices, is people like to say charge your worth. I'm like, that is so counter to what we actually need to be telling people to do, because you cannot charge your worth, right? You're charging for the outcome that you're helping them to get. You're charging for the transformation, but you're not charging for who you are. Those are
right?
totally different things. And I think when people can really start to grasp who they are, and like
Mhm.
you're saying, that the integration of all parts of who they are. I did a TED talk last year on exactly this, of how we kind of live these siloed lives. We show up one way as a mom, one way as a CEO, one way as a wife. And it's like, wait a second, if I am, you know, some missing part of who I am to show up in this role, then I really am not showing up fully in this role. And there's so much more power to be brought to that. So I love that
Right.
that's what you're doing.
And we're living in a time in this, especially during the pandemic, that gave us a chance to have a collective reconsideration. And part of what burst forth, besides, the systemic inequities that were exacerbated and things like that, was this desire for people to be authentic
Yeah.
and to put down the personas and to be just who they really are. And that's a very and unique part of what's happening right now. We have more freedom to be weird, and
Yeah.
people should give
That's
themselves
true.
permission to be all of themselves. And the other thing I thought of when you were saying that is, like, a lot of women, and me myself did this for many years, put our work in the center of our life, and then all the constellations of swim coach around the edges, or what
Okay.
our other values. We have to put ourselves in the center of our lives, but our self is fluid. We are not one identity. Like you were saying, this multiplicity of talents that we have. We have to bring back in the orphaned parts, the parts we've rejected, and include all of that to be whole, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's so important for women to grasp that. And, especially in today's culture where, yes, it is more accepted to be weird. Also, I think there's a warning that comes with that of be yourself, regardless if anybody celebrates you or not. I think that's so prominent right now is, oh, I'm going to show up fully as myself and you have to celebrate me for exactly who I am. And it's like, well, I don't have to, like if I want to, that's great. And I think that when we feel safe to just be who we are, regardless of the validation from outside sources, there's so much freedom in that.
Absolutely. I call that the shift from being externally referenced to internally referenced. And what's really incredible about this time that we're living in is, we could have been born into a lull, but we were born into a tipping point where almost everything is being reimagined, from healthcare to education to entrepreneurship. And that means everything is up for grabs. That means we can design our lives with our purpose at the center.
Yeah.
There was a study done by McKinsey that I mentioned to you earlier that looked at what do women need to thrive? And they identified 5 dimensions that when we master even one, we're twice as likely to feel fulfilled. And those are managing energy, um, managing your focus, what
Mm,
you think about, um, connecting with others, using your voice, and having meaning. And meaning is 6 times more, or 5 times more powerful at having you feel fulfilled. What do I mean by meaning? It's doing what you love that makes a difference for the larger group.
mhm.
But all those elements are the ones that we designed into our program and that are in the book. They're called the 5 co-creative powers, to really give women the tools for being able to be, I don't know how to say this in terms of reinvention, but to bring a more authentic self
Yeah.
through where you're more alive, where you're more happy,
Yeah.
where you're more whole.
It's
All
like
those,
an unveiling, you know?
yeah,
It's
yeah.
like really allowing yourself to shine through.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. And
Yeah.
have you ever heard of the happiness formula?
I've heard the happiness formula mentioned, but I'm not keen
I
on
was
what it's
just
all about.
coming across it recently, and it was designed by the forerunners of positive psychology, and it's a formula, and it's H is happiness equals S plus C plus uh, I, and here's what it means. Happiness. We evidently have an emotional set point, like a biological set point of a range of the moods that we've been in. No matter whether we have a catastrophic illness, we come back to that. No matter if we have
Like our baseline.
yeah,
Yeah.
if we win the lottery, we kind of come back to that. Doesn't matter. That stays the same, and that's like 50% of our happiness. The
Mm.
second one is called conditions of living. People think this one really has an impact. This applies to what you just said about external, internal.
Mm-hmm.
It's like your car, your house, your position, your title, all those things. 7 to 8% of our happiness. That's all.
All right.
But what has 40% of our happiness is intentional actions, like intentional practices.
Mm-hmm.
So, like you in all the beautiful books you've written, it's the techniques, the practices, the methods, the things that we apply every day, whether it's, writing in a journal or, managing your mind or feeling your feelings or speaking up in a meeting or, living the promise that you made. I think we all made kind of a soul promise to make a difference.
Yeah.
And it's interesting that the fifth dimension of meaning is 5 times more powerful, because in the happiness formula, if you're doing things that in the action part, if you're doing things that are for your own happiness, it's called hedonism.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't have half as much impact as if you're doing something for the collective good.
Yeah.
You then transcend the things
Right.
that stop you in general, and you reach a fulfillment that you never had before.
That's right. That's right. And it can be so deceiving when, like, if somebody's listening and they hear this and they're like, but I've been burned by people so many times, right? I know that there's somebody listening thinking just that. But the truth is you learn something from it, right? The truth is you don't
Yes.
know who you impacted, like who you seeded with that little piece of joy that you bring into the room, that little piece of light that you bring into the room. You don't know what you've seeded in that person or in other people or in people that just got to see the scenario unfold. You don't
Yes.
know yet what that was like.
Yes. And what you touched on is people don't learn much from success. Right.
So true.
They we only learn from failure. So failure is why it's a spiral. The book is called Spiral Up,
Yeah.
is that it represents that we go down to go up.
Yeah.
Those failures are the richness of where we learn. And also there are times when we plateau, and we need to realize that's okay too. That's
Yeah.
part of the journey. Like when you're in a plateau, you're going somewhere, because ultimately it goes up. And that's if you have a little faith that no matter how bad you're doing right now or how hard it is, this too shall pass.
That's right.
And faith, as Anne Lamott said, is how'd she put it? Faith is hope with a track record.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
So when you start noticing how things actually work out for you and how good you have it that you never even imagined, you start to have more faith.
Yeah, it's so good. It's so good. So, yeah, as you were writing this book, I think everybody should, write their story down. There's so much that comes out of that in their writing process. And so I want to know, just from your experience in writing this book and now having written this other part to it, right, that involves how men can really develop their EQ. What were some of the revelations that came out for you in writing this book?
Well, number one is like how universal some of this stuff is. I've been doing
Mm,
it for, like 30 years now. And one of the things when we come in a circle with women and they start saying, I have anxiety, I'm so negative on myself, and they hear everybody in the circle saying that, it's kind of like, oh, I'm not alone. It's so good to know that this is part of how women have downloaded that we're second class citizens on a subtle level.
yeah.
And that has added to what people call imposter syndrome and things that make you, no matter how successful you are, you doubt yourself. Just know that that's not personal to you. That's
Right.
universal. And there are tools that we can use. That's why the book is Spiral Up, because we all know what it feels like to have that worried little gremlin on our shoulders that says, like, do you like me? Is everything
Yeah.
okay? Should I be worried? And even when you have a big success or win, your brain does this weird thing where it bypasses the sense of joy and attaches to dread and goes like, am I going to be able to keep this going?
Right.
Can I stay on top of this? How will I not be shown that I'm an imposter? And
Yeah.
so people need practical tools for working with those things that are so universal. And it's true for men too, but more true for women, the negative noise.
Yeah. Oh, this is so good. And I want to take this moment right here and allow our audience opportunity to connect with you. So on what platform do you hang out on? Do you where people can connect with you better?
Sure. My website is spiralup.com and I'm on LinkedIn. Mostly LinkedIn is the best place to find out about me, but I have Instagram and I'm not on TikTok.
Yeah. Me neither. Me neither.
But yeah, I
Awesome.
mean, I love that.
Yeah,
And
good. We'll
I'm
be
on,
sure
on
to link
X.
both of those in the show notes.
Okay.
But Wendy, as we're wrapping up, what is one last piece of advice, or perhaps what is your favorite tool, or the tool that you would recommend to the listener right now that is in this space of, okay, I'm ready. Like I've made that decision to start living intentionally into
Mhm.
becoming the best version of myself. What's my step
Yeah.
one?
Well, let's see. Step one, I would say there in the book, there's like lists of things to get started, but there's maybe to know how to shortcut a spiral up if you're in a what I call an emotional pinch. If you
Mm,
find yourself like stuck on something that you're repeating and try and can't break through, there's 4 ways of doing it that are really quick. One is naming it. Just by
mm,
naming it gives you a little distance from it. You can say, jealousy, anger, just to name it, it lets you move beyond it some.
right, yeah.
Second one is to do a quick inquiry. If I'm feeling this, I must be believing that.
So good. Yeah.
That gets right to what is causing the negative thought. It's always a belief and it's probably limiting.
Hmm.
The third one is yes, and you learn this in improvisational theater.
Yeah.
The way this goes is I accept my feelings of X and I do not let them, you know, decide my actions.
Right.
I accept my feelings, but I'm not letting them. And lastly is what am I feeling? What am I needing? Because
Mm-hmm.
here's a really interesting point. Most people, if they're having an upsetting feeling, it's because a need wasn't getting met. And when they start to go deeper and find out what that need is, then they can take some action and make a request or meet that need themselves. So those are just some quickies, but there's tons of them in my book.
That's so good. That's so good. And we will be sure to link the book, which they can get on your website.
Yeah, but yes, on my website or Amazon, anywhere where books are found.
Awesome. Great. So we'll be sure to link that in the show notes. Y'all be sure to go and buy this book. Again, people think that when you write a book, you're just going to be a gajillionaire. That's not necessarily true with writing books.
Yeah.
But the part of of writing a book, right, is that now it's the written word and it's out there and it can't be deleted off of a screen. And it's a great way to give you those practical tools to get in there with your highlighter and take notes and really digest the information, not just so that you have the knowledge, but so that you can really digest it and move forward, go start implementing it in your life. Go ahead.
Just the last thing I sometimes forget to mention is this book is based on these programs that we run in tech companies all over the world. So if you have a situation where there's a male-dominated situation where you want to bring in more women leaders, we also have these great programs we have a program for men on inclusive leadership and a special program for women called Spiral Up. And that's all on my spiralup.com website too.
I love it. Wendy, thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you. You're such a joy. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. And again, we'll be sure to put all of Wendy's links in the show notes so that y'all can connect with her further. And if you are looking to be around other women that lift you up as well, be sure to head over to womenleaderspodcast.com. Bye for now.